Welcome to April and Debbie Dish the Truth on Weight Loss, where we share the raw, real, and sometimes messy truth about our weight loss journeys.
I am Debbie, a weight loss coach who has lost 100 pounds and maintained that weight loss for 4 years.
And I am April, a weight loss coach currently down 75 pounds and continuing my journey to lose 100 more.
Together, we'll explore the ups, downs, and everything in between, showing you that lasting weight loss is possible no matter where you are on your path.
Yes. And this week, we're going to discuss what we ask ourselves and how we ask it matters. Um, so I'm going to kind of just kick off into this because I brought this to Debbie before we got on that I went away on a little girls getaway on a weekend and it was great. And then at the end, Lori, who was in our group, asked us, we were all sitting around, and she said, so let's talk about what we liked about the trip and what we would change about the trip for next time. And we discussed it and all this, and that the way she asked it, for whatever reason, just hit me so hard in the best possible way, right? So when we assess our day or we look at that we weren't on plan or whatever, and for me anyway, I automatically go to like, I didn't do this and I didn't do that and I have to do this and I have to do that. But when she said it, I thought, why can't I just ask myself that way every day when I look at my plan or my day? So, like, to me, now I'm going to say, what did I like about today? And what would I change about today? For me, anyway, that one word change just neutralized the whole conversation within myself. There was like no judgment. It was just like, what would you change? I don't know. It just seems so much more approachable, less um intense and judgy. And I just thought that led me down a path of how we ask ourselves questions on a daily basis, right? Like, why didn't I do that right? Or why didn't I know that? Or all of these things we say to ourselves that just seem like generic questions. But instead of saying, like, why didn't I know that? You could just say, I didn't know that. How can I learn that? It's just a switch really quick and just a really basic switch, but it's just less negative, I guess. Right.
It's it's so impactful, and as I was sitting here listening to you, I mean, growing up or even as adults, like people tell us, if you say, well, I didn't like this. I mean, if you don't like something, inevitably in our thoughts, we think we're hurting somebody's feelings because we're saying we don't like this. And so it keeps us, I think, from sharing, right? Like we're not going to tell the
Yeah.
honest to God truth. And it can go down this really weird path too. Like if you went away with a group of women who are your friends, and if somebody said, well, I didn't like this, it could hurt any of those people or yourself. And just asking that simple question, what would you change? It just doesn't
Yeah.
feel so it doesn't feel so negative. Like you
Yeah.
said, it's just empowering, really.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it too, because that was a big thing. Like, instead of saying, what did you like about it versus what didn't you like about the trip, we may not, or I may not have shared as much because you don't want to make somebody think they didn't like something about them or a decision they made. And then it led me to like, okay, so if you're trying on a dress and you ask somebody like, do you like this? And like, no, I don't like it. You immediately like, okay, that's a no. But if you say, what would you change about the dress? Maybe there are some qualities about the dress that are nice, but you might want it sleeveless. It might look better as a sleeveless dress or something like this. It just looks like more constructive criticism instead of judging
Yes.
criticism, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And using that to reframe our days, like you said, like like if I look back at yesterday, what didn't I like about yesterday? If I ask myself that, like my brain is going, well, why do we want to look for things that we don't like? I mean, we do that. So what would we change? It just sounds simpler, easier.
Mhm.
And, we can use that same question when we look at our plans or our choices to any goal that we're going after, what would I change about how I showed up today for that goal?
Yeah, and when it comes to planning, so you did your plan, let's say you plan in the morning. And you're like, okay, this is what I think my day is going to be like. This is what the food and the meals I want to do and handle. And then I'll use it more personal. So say I make my plan for today and I didn't plan. So today we're meeting earlier and then I have another appointment after. So my dinner's not going to be until a little after 7. So I haven't eaten lunch since 12. So for me, I know that's going to be a very long time. I might not have the energy level I need for the things I'm going to do. But I didn't think about that this morning, hypothetically, right? So I just made a plan, made my lunches or my plan, whatever. And I get home and I didn't have something beforehand. And there was that, like, I have a 15-minute break in between the two calls, right? So let's say in those 15 minutes, I run down, so I'm so hungry and I shove stuff in my face and then I come back up for my next call. And okay, so now we're at the end of the night and I'm assessing my day. And I say to myself, what did I like about today? And what would I change about today? I'm more, my brain anyway, like everybody's different, but for me, my brain immediately goes into solution mode, solve it mode, instead of judging mode, where I would be like, what did I like? Well, I didn't like that I get out the laptop and I went downstairs and I shoved food in my face. Where what would I change? Next time I would change that when I know I have 2 calls back to back, I'm gonna plan a protein snack that I can eat in the car on the way home, so I'm set until dinner. It just, again, I don't know if anybody else connects with it, but to me, it just neutralized it so much more and triggered my brain to go into, like I said, solve it mode, solution mode, instead of just making myself feel bad mode.
And
About,
I
yeah.
think that is so true. Like you're giving your brain, you're giving yourself an opportunity to find a solution instead of
Mhm.
finding something to, I don't know, pick on yourself about. I think with
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
didn't like this. And when we look at our plans, when we do, I don't write down a plan every day anymore. I generally know what I'm going to eat for the day, but being able to at the end of the day just say that, what would I change? It just feels better. And then you can take that, what would I change, and implement that change, whether it's the next day, the next time you go out, the next time you have double calls in a day, like you can take that change and move it forward. And if you don't like something, you don't want to move it forward or find
Mhm.
a way to embrace it because you don't like it.
Right. And actually, I'm going to digress a little because when you were talking, it had me question something in my brain. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So I know that you lost your weight and you're in maintenance and you said you don't plan. So hopefully, I don't know, for me, I do have a goal that I won't have to necessarily always write down everything. You want to learn to get in tune with your body and kind of, pay attention to what works for you and makes you feel good. And but I know you've also mentioned that you've had a recent gain
Hmm.
of some weight. So, and that's the other thing. That's the other word I'm trying to work on is regain. We all use it. I had a regain. I had a regain. It makes me feel like crud when I say I've regained 15 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever it is. But because there's an attachment, when you say to me, for me, a story's there. I lost it. I was doing so good. Now I stopped doing good. Now I gained the weight. All these thoughts are coming into my head. And I thought, okay, well, what if I just say I've gained 10 pounds? Feels a little less like I've made an error somewhere. Like, yes, I don't want to gain weight, but it's not highlighting that in this great past of mine, I had lost it and I did all these bad things to gain it back again. Do you know what I'm saying? So even that little word of regain, I'm working on changing to I've gained 10 pounds and I'm working on losing the 10 pounds. I think it's so innocent when we say these things to ourselves, but it can be, if we're not listening to what we think when we say it, we're going to miss it. So you really do have to start listening to how it's making you feel when you say it. But that's the other word I'm trying to change in my vocabulary. Is I've gained. That's it. But
And
my
I think,
question, oh, go
oh,
ahead.
oh, go ahead. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget to
No, I
tell you.
won't forget my question. You go ahead.
So the regain is so, it is the worst. And I know we can all control our thoughts and, we get to choose what we think. But in truth, our thoughts are crappy, especially mine. And now you're sharing yours about the word regain. Because you're right, it does feel like a failure. And if you put 10 women who have lost weight in a row and they've put on some weight, if you watch their face when they say, I have regained weight, you can see like the failure there. And it's not, it's not a failure. Our bodies fluctuate. Sometimes we're going to eat more because of a holiday, a birthday, moving across country, losing your mom and feeling the feels. Like it's going to happen. It is not a failure. It's part of life. And I love that you are choosing to reframe it that I gained 10 pounds. Like I did. That's it. Not the end of the world. It's I've gained it, I've lost it before, I'll probably gain it again, but don't make it so negative with the regain. Sorry, I totally get you on that one.
No, it's okay. I digressed multiple times, but yeah, I think with gaining weight, there's a story we all tell ourselves. And I just for me anyway, when I said I regained it, it just made that story even more negative in my brain.
Mhm,
Like saying I gained weight doesn't necessarily, fireworks aren't shooting off and I'm not celebrating the fact that I gained it, but it's more factual and just like is what it is. And now I'm working towards learning how to lose this weight moving forward. Where when I add the regained weight, it adds another layer of
mhm.
disappointment and judgment. But back to the question I wanted to ask you is when you were planning when you were actively losing weight with the gain that you have had, are you working on planning again or are you choosing not to do planning still?
So I have done a couple of plans. I don't know, just because I felt like I did. I felt like I needed to get back to where I was. But honestly, everything, this is what I love about the way you and I are choosing to lose weight. And again, no judgment to anybody for how you're choosing to lose your weight. If it's healthy and it feels good, that's okay. Healthy and keeping yourself healthy is the most important. And so I have realized that for me, it's not so much the planning, it's listening for satisfied. So that has been where my focus is. My days are really boring, food wise. Like I know I love cereal for breakfast. I love Rice Krispies with blueberries and lunch. I have been eating like I have the same sort of things every day. So I really don't, I did get Culver's ice cream yesterday. That was not planned, but it's those things like I know that it wasn't planned. I know that probably had me overeating, but I was happy with my reason, so I'm okay with it. But for me, it's more just listening for my hunger because I know that's where the weight came back. And and I also think the beauty of how we are losing or how, you know, well, we're both losing, how we are both losing our weight is like what we're doing is something that when we're 80 years old, we can still be doing, and I think that that is what is so important is when the gain happens, just slip. That's yeah, it is really just slipping right back into your normal habits that we've learned all the way down the scale and we'll continue to learn. The learning is not done when we reach our goal. We keep learning because life keeps happening.
So that is interesting. So for me, I think I imagine there would be some version of planning for me for most of my days as long as life is here because when we think of planning, like I've said it to myself and I know I've heard other women say it, I don't want to plan for the rest of my life. It just feels like too much. And I have said that, and sometimes I still say it, and sometimes I take a break from it, and then I do it again. And then there's cycles to what works and what you want to do. But as a whole of over a course of time, I have learned for me that when I plan my day, it's just like anything else. I think again, it's just what we tell ourselves and what questions we're asking ourselves. Like that would be a great thing to ask when you say that to yourself, or when I said that to myself. I then ask myself, why don't I want to plan? And then I started writing the reasons why I do want to plan. And that's something that I'm working on as well, which leads to this. It's the same kind of subject of the questions we're asking ourselves. So I've talked before about not eating certain things or not doing certain things or not going to bed by a certain time or whatever goals I have that I choose not to do sometimes. I am working on making a list of the goal that I want to achieve and why I choose to do it for myself. I think writing down the reasons, like I tend to plan to eat protein focused meals for my day. Protein is like a big hype word right now. Everybody's talking about it. So I know it's like a big topic. But for me, I have learned on my journey from what I spent time doing for the first half of this year that my days when they are protein focused meals and balanced with some carb and vegetable and fat, whatever, I am at my best. I and drinking water. That's a huge one too. But um that's when I'm at my best. So I could think, I don't want to have to eat protein for the rest of my life. This sucks. Like, why do I have to focus on this? But I'm really trying to flip it around and ask the question of myself, why do I want to have protein focused meals for the rest of my life? And writing down why that is. And I think it's very powerful to tell yourself why you are choosing to do these habits for yourself. I feel better. I have less snacking urges. I'm much more focused at work. I'm more clear minded. I'm not as tired. I could go on. So I think even if you take one a week, like don't feel, I think we often overload ourselves. Like I have to sit down and write every
Mhm.
goal I have and every reason I want to do it. And that can just be very overwhelming sometimes. So I am working on every week. If I feel like doing more, that's fine. But I write down a goal that really means a lot to me, that feels good to me, that sometimes I either don't do or I question if I want to do it. I think it's natural in the day-to-day life of how busy we are and how overloaded our brains can get sometimes where we just feel like tired. And I think those type of things are just the easiest to drop off, right? But that's the reason to make the list. So I want to drink 100 to 120 ounces of water a day. People see me do it at work and they make comments all the time. How do you drink that much water? Because and I tell them, "Because I feel better, I don't get headaches, I have more energy, and I really wanna focus on that." So, those are the reasons I do it, and when you write it down, it really sinks into your brain, like, "This is something I wanna do. Nobody's making me do this. I don't have to do this, but I feel good doing it." And once you make that statement to yourself and realize that this is a choice I'm making for me, it changes how you look at the action that you're doing every day.
Yeah, and the things that really stood out for me with that is, why do you want to do this goal for yourself? And I think that is the biggest question, the most important question. We so often set goals for a wedding or a graduation and then wonder why we gain the weight that we lost for this event back. We weren't doing it for ourselves, we were doing it for somebody else. And there's nobody better to focus goals on. If we're setting goals for ourselves, like, we want to achieve them for ourselves. And, yeah, maybe I have a little list here. So people don't like to plan, and I don't want to plan. And when people make a grocery list or like I make a menu for our week, this is breakfast,
Yep.
lunch, dinner every day. That's planning. So I guess
Mhm.
when I told you, April, I'm not planning, I am.
I'm
I
glad you caught
stand
that.
corrected because I am planning. I'm making a grocery list every week. I know what we're having. So maybe I don't sit down and make a plan every day, but I've got a plan for the week of the food that's going to go into, my body, and the um protein being that I almost called you this week because you are so in touch with what works for your body and you know the importance of the protein. And so I was asking Kevin if some things were fiber or protein. He's like, I don't know. I said, I'm going to call April. I didn't, but I will tell you,
Call me anytime.
I know, but I don't. It sounded kind of silly that I was going to call you for that, but the cashew butter, I honestly don't know if that is protein. I think it is, right?
There's protein in it.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
I love cashew
I don't
butter.
know how much, but
Look,
yeah.
but I am just from listening to April, learning the importance of paying attention to what feels good in your body. And I have learned, like, I didn't realize the foods that were like, I just didn't think any food affected my body. Like, it didn't impact a thing, but I have learned to pay attention because foods are impacting us every single day. So I
Oh,
just went
yes.
off on a little tangent there.
No, I think that's great. And when you realize that, and I think planning, especially when you're planning your food, it again, it's an easy drop off from your day. But if you look at it differently and you ask yourself, why do I want to plan? Or what could I change about planning that would make it feel easier to me? Like I do plan Sundays. I don't know what day you do it, but for me, I do plan our meals for the week on Sundays. Maybe actually we prep them on Sundays. Never mind. We prep them on Sundays. We usually plan it on Friday night. But regardless, it's planned in advance for the whole rest of the week. We know our dinners and my breakfast and lunches are made for the week. So that is not, and I started food prepping before food prepping was cool. I've been doing it for a very long time. And I would never change that. I sometimes struggle to do it the way I would like to do it because of going away on vacation or just feeling tired or not feeling like I have the time or whatever the reason is, but I always figure out a way to make it work because those very far and few between times that I have not done it, my week is much harder. Might feel like a lot to do at one time, but after work, I never have to think about what we're having for dinner. I don't have to make that decision. I don't have to worry about cooking everything. Some things are already cut up or some things are already cooked, depending on what it is. It really makes the work week much more doable for me in terms of staying on my weight loss journey. So, talking about why it's easier and why it's helpful is really great. And when I think about planning the meals, it might take because I do talk about with Kevin, so there is some
I
chat
do too.
sometimes back and
Yep.
forth or not focusing on the conversation sometimes, but even still, it's a max of a 15-minute conversation, and all those decisions for the week are done. Instead of getting that text, "Hey, what's for dinner?" or walking in the door and somebody looking at you and saying, "Hey, what are we having for dinner?" For me, that is very stressful after a day of work. I have had to do too many decisions during my day that I do not want to come home and think about that. So if we really ask ourselves why you want to do something, or again, how can I change it to be easier? So I do it at one time for the week. Also, I do write a plan daily to kind of keep in mind what I'm doing and what might be coming up that day. And I have time myself for how long it takes to make a plan. I do mine at night because I personally don't want to do it in the morning, but I write mine at night, and if I just do, like, the bare minimum of planning, it's not even 5 minutes if I'm just writing down the food that I plan for the next day. If I'm doing a little journaling or answering some questions, it's maybe, like, a 10-minute process, but it's really not that long. I've timed myself multiple times at different situations, and it's really a gift you're giving to yourself, and I think the reframing of how we're looking at these things is very powerful in us continuing to do them.
I would agree. And something that a word I think both of us have used repeatedly in this podcast today is simple. And
Mhm.
we have been trained by, I don't know if it's the diet industry, friends, family, that losing weight is hard. And it's kind of like going, what didn't you like, right? Well, if you go in thinking weight loss is hard, who wants to do it? Because hard is not fun, but it's finding all of the simple, easy ways to support yourself. And you have said it several times, like the things, the benefits that you see from meal prepping, like it's setting yourself up for success later on. And I don't know, like trying to find, even though saying losing weight is simple, our brains are probably going to go, oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. And it isn't simple. It isn't easy, but it doesn't have to be hard either. It's finding what makes it easier for you.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think you pointed out a good portion of what making it easier for you is when you talked about losing weight for a wedding or a birthday or whatever it is, or a trip. And that's a fine goal. Like, we're not saying it's not a good goal to have. Anything that gets you interested in what you would really want in your life is great. But at the same time, that would be a time to question, like, why is it so important to me to lose it for this wedding? Well, I'm going to guess that somebody's answer would be like, well, there's going to be pictures. I have to look good in the pictures. But that's because you want everybody else to see what you think means looking good, right? So it's not really about you yourself. So when we think about it, and we think about the reason we want to even lose weight, it's really important to, I guess it kind of goes back to when everybody always talks about the big why question. Why do you want to lose weight? You want it to be, I think you can have different reasons, different whys, and it can always be moving. It's not always like the same why all the time. Like the vacation or the wedding is a great why if it gets you interested for something that you want for yourself. At the same time, you want to ask yourself, why does the losing weight make me feel good in my body? Why is this a goal of mine for the rest of my life? And how can I do it that's going to be easy for me? Like, it is challenging. I wouldn't necessarily say weight loss is hard. I think the thoughts behind it, and that's where we are ourselves, we are the missing pieces to why it's not working, because we are not asking ourselves enough questions on a day-to-day basis. When we do overeat, or when we do ask for chocolate or eat chocolate or popcorn or whatever your choice is, and especially women, we all have this innate intuitiveness in our body for sure. And we know when we're eating because of emotion versus it's, I'm hungry, right?
Mm.
So we have to want, and we have to be willing to ask ourselves a question when we look back at our day and we say, okay, I ate that candy bar today. There's nothing wrong with eating a candy bar. There's a big difference though when you're eating a candy bar because you plan to have one that day, or you made a choice to have one, because it might not be on your plan. And say you up and went to the movies on a whim and you decided to have a candy bar. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you look back, when you had the candy bar at work, after you had lunch, after somebody ticked you off, you know that was an emotional time for you. So later on, we want to ask ourselves, okay, what would I change about how I handle that situation if it came up again? That's a question I'm going to be asking myself a lot. And I am forever grateful to Lori for asking it the way she did, because I'm just going to start asking myself, what would I change about how I handled that? What would I change about whatever? It's just more approachable for me, and it makes you look at it and assess it. And I also, when it comes to food prepping, I think, like yourself, you are somebody you do not like to cook, right? You've said
That
that
is,
before.
yes, I'm
So
getting
I
better.
imagine what, huh?
I'm getting better-ish.
I imagine when you hear food prep, you might start breaking into hives, right? You're like, no, I don't want
Yeah, no,
to.
no.
But food prepping, I just want to, this is, I know we're kind of all over the place today, but food prepping, I want to say, for people who don't like to cook, it does not have to be a gourmet 5-hour event to accomplish a prepped meal. There are so many different options you can do for yourself. Say you want no cooking at all, right? There's rotisserie chicken, there's Greek yogurt, there's frozen vegetables. They even have frozen rice already cooked that you can pop in the microwave. There's so many options. And I know there's also pre-cooked meat. I don't like I said rotisserie chicken. Yeah. Or there's like the next level. So last night I made dinner and I was tired. We had a planned meal and it was one where I had to cook um all of the components because it was fish and I do like to have fish fresh. I had a longer day at work than I normally do and I was tired and I came home and it was hot and I just didn't want to do it. And then I asked myself, do I really not want to do it? I really wanted what I planned. So I thought of the easiest way I could make it. It was not the way I planned on making it, but I did like a sheet pan meal, which is not necessarily something I've done a lot of, but I set the oven for 400. I slapped the salmon on there. I slapped the potatoes and I slapped some onion and I threw the broccoli in the microwave. And it was done in 10 minutes. All of it was done in 10 minutes.
Awesome.
And I had a great meal. Kevin loved it. It was great. And I was satisfied with what I had done because kept to what I wanted to have. And I also figured out a way to make it easier in that moment. Sometimes it just takes a pause to think like, how can I still accomplish this with the least amount of effort? And if anybody ever needs meal prep tips, you just send us emails. I could talk about it all day.
Well, I am gonna head, I mean, thankfully you are sitting down, but I did some meal prepping this
Oh
week.
yeah.
Not for the entire week. And I am an example, like April talks about, of not cooking. I had
Mhm.
some blueberries, I had apples, I had almond butter, and I had prosciutto, cheese wrapped in prosciutto. And that's what I took with me. And it was great. You just saw them in the fridge, grab them out. And so
Mhm.
April's the queen of it. She can answer any questions. I am the princess who is learning from her. And
I love that.
And you said we were all over the place today. That is what I love the most about us is that, it's
Yeah.
just a conversation. You never know where we're going to go.
It's true. Cause we'll talk. I'm like, oh wait, I want to say this too and this too. But it all kind of relates and it does come back to really just kind of listening to what would work and asking yourself what you're willing to do today and making choices. And it doesn't have to be everything all at once. And really I love that. And I think it's helpful at the end of the day to acknowledge what you did like. That's really important. Like for me, I'm working on eating breakfast at home before work. I have learned that when I eat breakfast at home, my days are much better. And when I eat breakfast at my desk, the food is not as on point as it normally is. So I really thought about that and what would be the difference. I'm eating the same thing. It's literally the same breakfast, but I have seen a trend in that difference. And I thought about it and I asked myself the questions like, why is it different? Well, at home, I sit down at the table, I have the plate, I have the food, I'm drinking, and I time myself today actually because I knew we would be talking and I wanted to be prepared to talk about this. And I time myself and how long it took me to eat, and it was 10 minutes. So it was not a huge amount of time, but it was an isolated, focused 10 minutes that I was eating. It registered to my body that I was eating. And then on the way to my job, which is about a 25-minute ride, I drink my first 40 ounces of water on that ride. That's how I knock out the first 40 for the day. I
That's
just keep drinking
awesome.
as I'm driving. So by the time I get to work, I'm good, right? And ready for coffee. But and then when I'm eating at work, eating breakfast at work, I'm taking a couple bites, I'm doing work, I'm answering a call, I'm talking to a patient, then I go back, I take a bite here. It's not a moment that's dedicated to the meal and then my body is not registering that I've eaten a meal and that we're good. It's kind of like you have I can't think of the way to say it, but it's just not. I think a dedicated time, even if it's 10 minutes, makes a big difference. And I've told my coworker because she's working on um, her health journey. And she's like, I don't have time for lunch today, blah, 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 very frantic. And I said, you absolutely have 10 minutes for yourself today. Absolutely. This day is not going to go any better, any worse if you sit down for 10 minutes eat she had a smoothie and yogurt or something. It's definitely something she could eat in 10 minutes and she did and I was so thankful and she felt better for the rest of the day. Like it's really you want to remember you are so important to how your day runs and if you don't take these little 10 minutes for whether it's lunch, whether it's a walk, whether it's going to the bathroom, because I know a lot of people wait forever to go to the bathroom,
Hey,
that causes more stress on your body and it
yes,
makes a very big impact on your health.
yeah. I love all of that. It's been so great to talk to you today. And I am glad that you are encouraging your coworker and all of us. I mean, to learn what we need. And 10 minutes is not a big ask to give ourselves to enjoy a meal sitting down.
Yeah, and you deserve it. And I'm so proud of her. She's doing great. She's doing a lot of changes. She's really doing great. But I think it's we often go through our day and never taking the time for ourselves, whether it's to eat a meal, like I said, or take a walk or go to the bathroom or whatever it is. And it it's most likely at the end of the day you're gonna feel frazzled or you're gonna feel tired or, like you didn't get a break. And then you might snack more at night because you didn't just take a little bit of time for yourself in the day.
Yeah, it's amazing what that can do. Well, I'm excited for our next week's podcast. We would love for people to send us some questions. Doesn't even have to be a question. Share something that has been a win for you that we can celebrate it here with you and
Yeah,
maybe talk about our wins or how we handled the situation that you're working on, whatever it is. Reach out to April and Debbie Dish the Truth at Gmail, and we'd love to talk with you or share about your story.
absolutely. Give everybody shout
Yes,
outs.
absolutely. So from my heart to your journey, keep blooming.
And as always, wake up willing to do something that feels good to you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.